Well, Silca, that company that makes those really nice pumps and that chain lubricant, have decided to go and branch off into a different area, and that's tyre sealant. Now, the reason why they've moved into this area is because they felt that a better sealant could be made, and also they have some chemists already developing their chain lubes, so they wanted to use their expertise to go into the area of tyre sealants, and they believe they could come up with a better product, and they've actually released it, and it's called the Ultimate Tyre Sealant. So let's roll an intro and let's have a discussion about what the pros and cons are of this new sealant that Silca are putting out. Now, this tyre sealant, the great thing about it is instead of using glitter and all these other sorts of products, which Silca claim aren't really that effective, and the reason why they claim that they're not very effective is because when you're riding a bike, the sealant basically flows completely around the edge of the tyre, inside of course, and because of the centrifugal force, the sealant is evenly covered on the tyre. So when you get a puncture, then as the air escapes, the sealant will then run to that whole area. But what they found is a lot of the products that we used inside the sealant were not flowing to the hole, things like glitter and little particles and beads and that sort of stuff, because what was happening is the centrifugal force was keeping them in the position on the tyre, and they weren't moving to the hole to help plug up the hole. And they felt like, how can then we improve this? Well, Silca then used a double-prong approach to trying to achieve a suspension of the fibres and use a fibre that's very light. And what they decided to use is carbon fibres. And what they use is like a recycled carbon fibre. So when you get your carbon wheels and your carbon frames, they get basically crushed up into tiny little pieces, and then it's processed at a very high temperature, which burns off all the resin. So you just have the actual fibres left, but they're very light and they're very small. And this is the product they're using. Now, to allow them to flow around with the sealant, what they did is they basically made a aerating product that would allow it to foam. So they had an aerator that they put into the latex. They aerated it, so instead of the little fibres sitting on the tyre, like there's just a liquid film there, this thing, as it was spinning, was being aerated and foamed up. So the little fibres were being suspended and held in these bubbles. So then when the puncture occurred and these bubbles collapsed, then these fibres would move to the point where the puncture is and seal the puncture. Now, I'll put a link up the top here to the Silca video, and if you can believe what they put in this video, the sealant works extremely well and seals very, very quickly. Now, the downside to this product is because now they've managed to make the sealant work extremely effectively, and it can seal up to an 8mm hole, 6mm almost 100%, 8mm at some lower percentage, is that you can't use normal methods to get the sealant into the tyre. You can't use a injection device where you put it through the valve, because as soon as you try to suck it up with the injection device, it seals the end of the injection device. It's like that good. So obviously when you try to inject it in through the valve, it's going to seal up the valve. So if you wanted to put it in when you're out riding as a added fix to your flat, like I do, like I ride along and I haven't got the sealant in my tyre, and then when I get a flat, then I put the sealant into the tyre and then I pump it up and then spin the tyre and it seals the tyre. I can't use it in the application, so that's a really big con. So if you're somewhat a person who wants to add the sealant later, or you want to add the sealant through the valve or inject it through the tyre, this product can't be used like that. You need to pour it into the tyre before you mount the tyre. So it can only be used on tubeless tyres in that instance, which I can understand that's probably their target design, but for using it in other applications like putting it into a tube or putting it into a tubular, it can't be used in that application.
So that you can see it there, and we go to suck it up, and we get about half an ounce, And at the ½ ounce point, you see we have fully, we have fully plugged that up. And we'll see if we can get a nice close-up with our phone there. Now the question is, can we actually pump any of it back out again? So I've got ½ ounce. Oh.
Now the demonstration tie that they used wasn't really at that high pressure, and it was actually quite a high volume tie, because obviously the bigger the tie goes, you have the area, because of when you make a circle twice as big, or the area inside the tie, should I say, doesn't double when you double the circumference. It's a much higher factor. So the air volume in there is quite considerably more, which allows you to have more air to seal the puncture. So on smaller ties, you have less air. And the other thing as well is the fact that you are running at higher pressures. Now, people who want to run smaller tires like 23 mil or 25 mil like I do, how effectively are they going to seal if you're going to be running pressures maybe 70, 80, 90, 100 psi? And that is probably another issue. So even though it seals extremely well, it isn't really the holy grail of sealant. It's moving towards that, if what Silca are claiming is we can take it on face value. Obviously, I haven't done any tests specifically on the product, and I probably won't, because I don't run clincher type tires. I've got no clincher rims because I got rid of them all. And I run tubular. So according to them, which are the manufacturer, you can't put this through the valve. It just won't work. It'll just seal up your valve straight away. And he actually demonstrates that in the video that I linked to. So that is one of the negatives. So in conclusion, where are we with sealants? Well, it's good to see that Silca are working on moving towards a better product, because I've always said the trouble with tubeless is not the design of the tubeless design, the hooks and whatever, even though the mating of the hooks is actually pretty critical, and the industry needs to sort that out and get their standards and their quality control really well. And that was basically exposed by Mavic, and they says that you need to have a really good interface, and their tires, you didn't even need to put sealant in them, they would seal. That interface was so good, and I think the industry needs to get to that level. And then the tires, you could run them like a car tire does. You just run them tubeless, and you don't need to put the sealant in, and you would only have to put the sealant in when you get a flat, like you do with a car. You have a little canister and you can put the sealant in when you get a flat. Otherwise, you don't need to put any sealant in. Now, the problem is with this product, the Silca product, you can't use it that way. You must run the sealant in the tire, and you need to put the sealant into the tire. You cannot put it through via an injection system, and you can't put it through via the valves or a needle. I've seen some people just basically put a hole straight in the tire, inject it in, and then they pull it out and it seals the hole. So they basically put a hole in the tire that seals with the sealant, and you can't put it through the valve. So it's good to see that Silca have actually found out some failures with sealant, how to make it work better. But the problem is they've made it work too good for some applications. It would be great if you could somehow put a two-part mix in. So let's just say you could somehow get the fibers in first, and then you could put the liquid in afterwards, and then it would mix, and then you could put it in through the valve. Maybe they could come up with a two-part system, and it doesn't get activated till you put the other part in. I don't know, but I do think that this is a step towards the holy grail of sealants, and I think that if companies put their minds to it, they might be able to get there. And we've also got these inserts as well, which is another tool. But I think that what they need to do is the manufacturers need to somehow standardize the system so the fitment of these products is far, far easier. I do think that the complexity of a lot of these systems is too difficult currently. Most people, can't even be bothered with a tube. They take it to the bike shop just to get a tube in, let alone mucking around with sealants and, these special devices that use pressure, or you have to take it down to the garage to get them to seat, or it won't seat, or sometimes they do seat, or if it's an old tire and you put it back on, then it won't seat, but it seated when you first put it on. All these sorts of issues, people can't be bothered mucking around with them. They just want to be able to put it on their bike and ride their bike. And it's only the people who are really keen and really into cycling will take that extra effort to set up a tubeless and put the stuff in and do it. So this is, I think, the negative. They need to make it basically like so easy. Even like they have a sachet and you just put that in a tyre, then you put the tyre on, and then what happens is when you pump the tyre up, somehow that makes the little packet rupture and you have your sealant in there. So there's none of this mess and pouring stuff in. There must be an easier way to make it, basically dumb it down so no one can stuff it up. Although we know that an idiot's born every minute. But you know what I mean, guys. They need to be able to make it so these products work pretty much all the time in all different tyres and all the way. And I think the bicycle industry, one, needs to get their tolerances better, and they need to get these sealants a little bit better. And it's good to see Silca are actually spending some time and initiative on trying to make that product better, because I think the sealant is really the key. Once they get the sealant working well, tubeless will then come of age. It will be the ultimate system, but currently it's just not.